Chosen one. You didn't just stumble into this video. You didn't land here by accident. Maybe you're sitting in your car after a long day, letting the silence settle in before you head inside. Maybe it's late. Maybe no one knows the weight you're carrying right now. You opened your phone, scrolled a little, and here you are. But this isn't random. Something bigger is at work. Maybe you've been waiting for a sign. Not a loud one, not flashing lights or a miracle in the sky, but just a moment, a voice, something quiet but clear. And here it is. This is that moment. Not because these words are powerful, but because God knows how to find you, right where you are, right when your heart is finally still enough to listen. You didn't click out of curiosity. You were drawn here. You were called here. And maybe you can't even explain why. You just feel it. That tug in your spirit. That sense that someone is finally speaking to what you've been carrying in silence. That's not a coincidence. That's divine timing. Right now, heaven is leaning in. God is drawing near, and whether you believe it or not, whether you feel ready or not, something in the unseen is shifting on your behalf. You've been praying for confirmation. This is it. You've been asking if God still sees you. He does. You've been wondering if you're still in His plan. You are. This message didn't find you, you were found for it. And before we go any further, just breathe. Let go of the rush. Let go of the doubt. Let your spirit catch up to what God's already doing. Because you're not watching by chance. You're watching by divine appointment. And it starts right here. There comes a moment when the waiting starts to break. When the silence you've carried for years begins to tremble, like a door unlocking from the inside. You've been in a long season, longer than anyone knows. You smiled through it. You showed up. You did what you could. But behind the scenes, you've been stuck. Opportunities that should have opened didn't. Prayers that should have been answered weren't. Doors stayed shut. Time stood still. You told yourself, maybe it's not my time yet. And you were right. But that time is shifting. Listen carefully. Something is moving. Not in front of your eyes just yet, but in the unseen. Like a key turning slowly. Like a wind changing direction. This is the part of the story where the page starts to turn. Not because you forced it, not because you earned it, but because heaven said, now. There's a verse, Habakkuk 2:3. It says, the vision is for an appointed time. Though it lingers, wait for it. It will certainly come and will not delay. You've been living in the linger. Now, you're stepping into the come, just like that man who had been unemployed for 2 years. He'd applied for everything, prayed every prayer. Nothing moved. He was ready to give up when he opened an old email account, just to check. And there it was. One message. From a company he hadn't heard from in over a year. They'd been watching, waiting, and the job. It wasn't just a paycheck. It matched his gifting, his calling, his heart. What seemed delayed was simply reserved. That's how God works. He doesn't rush. He aligns when things feel still. He's not ignoring you. He's setting the stage. He's preparing timing, people, places, you. And when it's time, the doors don't just open, they swing. Right now, they're starting to shake. You may not see it yet, but the hinges are trembling. The pressure is building. The breakthrough is near. So don't misread the silence. It's not denial. It's divine setup. You're not being forgotten. You're being positioned. The waiting is almost over, and the door that wouldn't open is about to move. Sometimes, silence feels like abandonment. You pray. You wait. You hold on. But nothing changes. No sign, no shift. Just more of the same. And in that quiet, the enemy whispers God forgot you. But what if the silence isn't rejection? What if it's preparation? And there's a kind of training that happens in the dark. When no one's watching, when there's no applause, no recognition, just obedience. Think of the mother who prays at the kitchen sink every night. Her son's been addicted for 10 years. She's tried everything: rehab, counseling, boundaries, grace. Still, he doesn't come home. But every evening, she sets the table. 2 plates, one for her, one for him. She knows people think she's foolish. They stopped asking about him years ago. But she never moved his chair. Why? Because faith doesn't need proof to prepare. Faith prepares anyway. That's the kind of faith God builds in the silence. The kind that says, even if I don't see it yet, I'll still believe. And that belief isn't weak. It's not passive. It's powerful. Because the truth is, God sees what no one else does. He sees the tears you wipe away before anyone notices. He sees the effort you make when no one claps. He sees the days you keep going when giving up would be easier. You think you've been overlooked, but you've been observed. He's watched you grow in patience. He's seen you choose kindness when bitterness would have been easier. He's watched you forgive, serve, wait without a spotlight. That's not wasted. That's foundation. Because when the next season comes, when the doors open and the promotion arrives and the platform expands, you'll need something stronger than talent. You'll need character. And that can only be built in the quiet. So don't curse the silence. Honor it. This is where depth is formed, where endurance is tested, where real faith is forged. Jesus himself spent 30 years in obscurity for 3 years of ministry. Preparation always takes longer than the moment it leads to. So if it feels like nothing is happening, maybe it's because everything is happening. In you, through you, for what's next. God hasn't forgotten you. He's forming you. And what feels like silence is actually sacred ground. Not everyone will celebrate your breakthrough. Let that settle in. When God starts to elevate you, when things finally begin to shift in your favor, not everyone claps. Some stay quiet. Some step back. Some smile to your face, but flinch behind your back. That's not failure. That's confirmation. People get comfortable with who you used to be. The version that struggled, needed help, was easy to manage or pity. But when you grow, when you rise, you disrupt that narrative, and that makes them uncomfortable. Some will question your motives. Some will say you've changed too much. Some will accuse you of forgetting where you came from. But they don't see private obedience. The battles behind the blessing, they see the fruit, never the cost. Like the man who came from nothing, slept on couches, ate noodles, and walked to work. Then one idea took off. The doors opened, and the people he thought would celebrate withdrew. They whispered, rolled their eyes, said he'd changed, and he had. He changed through faith, through fire, through silent seasons no one stuck around for. So hear this: God will elevate you, but not everyone will understand the price you paid. That's why your heart must be ready. Not just for the blessing, but for the burden that sometimes comes with it. The room may get quieter, the smiles colder, but that doesn't mean you're wrong. It means you're becoming. Don't shrink to make others comfortable. Don't sabotage your growth to keep familiar company. Some relationships are seasonal. Some people are scaffolding, not the structure. Let God build. Let people respond how they will. You're not living for applause. You're living for alignment. And if the room gets smaller while your calling gets bigger, so be it. You weren't called to be liked. You were called to be faithful. Blessing is a beautiful thing, but it's also a test. Not a test of how much you have, a test of how you carry it. Because when the breakthrough comes, when the promotion lands, when the money finally shows up, your heart will speak louder than ever. When you become rich, live like someone still learning how to be humble. Then anyone can worship in the waiting. But who will stay grounded when the waiting ends? There's a story about two people. One won the lottery, millions overnight. He celebrated loud, spent fast, lived big, cars, parties, vacations, but within a year, it was all gone. Not just the money, but peace, purpose, friends, identity. Because the blessing was bigger than the foundation it landed on. Then there was the other man. He got a raise. Nothing flashy, just enough to breathe a little easier. But he kept the same car. Still showed up early, Kof. Still served behind the scenes. And when someone in church needed help, he was the first to give, but never the first to post about it. One lived to be seen. The other lived to stay steady. Jesus said it plainly in Luke 16:10. Whoever is faithful with little will also be faithful with much. Faithfulness isn't about the amount, it's about the attitude. Because what you do increases, reveals what's truly inside. Will you start to feel above others? Will you forget how you got here? Will you spend to impress instead of serve? Or will you remember that every good thing is a gift? Will you hold a blessing with open hands? Not clenched fists. Will you stay close to the ground, even when God lifts you higher? Cinematic image: one person steps out of a luxury car, adjusting their outfit, glancing to see who's watching. Another pulls up in an old sedan, worn Bible in hand, smiling as they slip quietly into the back row of church. One wants to be seen. One came to serve. It's not about wealth. It's about weight. Can you carry the blessing without losing your balance? So when the good days come, and they will, don't forget who brought you there. Don't forget the nights you prayed for what you now hold. Don't forget the silence that shaped your character before the spotlight ever touched your name. Stay low, Stay grateful. Stay faithful. It's because how you handle favor is what shows heaven you're ready for more. What does it really mean to be rich? Not the kind you can count in a bank account. Not the kind that fits in a driveway, but the kind that lingers in a room long after the lights are off. There's a couple, a husband and wife in their 70s. They live in a modest home. Nothing fancy. The kitchen floor creaks. The couch has seen better days. But every night, it fills with laughter. Their kids drop by without calling. Their grandkids run barefoot through the yard. Dinner might be simple, just rice and soup, but it's full of warmth, full of love, full of peace. Now look at another man. Everything money can buy, he has. Luxury, status, recognition. But his home is quiet, not peaceful, just empty. He lies awake at night, heart racing, mind spinning, wondering how he can hold it all together. See, wealth isn't measured by what you own. It's measured by what owns you. Jesus asked in Mark 8:36, "What good is it for someone to gain the whole world, yet forfeit their soul? The world might call you rich when you rise high, but heaven calls you rich when you stay rooted." True wealth is knowing who you are without needing to prove it. It's sitting at the same table, eating the same meal, and still being filled. It's peace when the world is spinning. It's relationships that go deep, not wide. It's purpose that wakes you up, not pressure. You're being lifted in this season. Doors are opening. Opportunities are finding you. But this isn't about impressing the world. This is about becoming who God always intended you to be. You're not being elevated to prove something. You're being positioned to live from fullness. Cinematic image, a dinner table under warm light. Children laughing. A wrinkled hand passing a bowl of food. Joy that isn't staged, it's lived. That's wealth. Not noise, not status, not more. Just enough wrapped in peace. So as the blessing comes, don't just ask. What can I buy? Ask. What am I building? Not a brand, not a platform, a life, a legacy, a soul that still knows rest. Because if what you gain costs you your joy, your peace, your soul, it's not worth the price. But if you can rise and still sleep well, laugh deeply, love fully, then you're already rich. This is the confirmation you've been waiting for. Not a coincidence, not just good timing. You didn't scroll here by chance. You were led. Maybe you've been carrying questions in silence, asking God to speak, to show you something, anything, to remind you that He still sees you, that you're not forgotten, that your waiting hasn't been wasted. Well, this is it. This is your moment. This is your sign. This is the confirmation you've been waiting for. You don't need fireworks. You don't need a voice from the clouds. You just need a word that is different, that reaches into the places no one else sees, that speaks directly to what you've been afraid to say out loud. Maybe you didn't even know what you were looking for when you hit play, but now you do. This is it. Cinematic picture. A man sits alone, head in his hands, tired, frustrated, lost. Then, he hears a sentence that breaks something open inside him. Tears fall not from weakness, but release. Because deep down, your spirit already knew. You just needed the reminder. You needed someone to say God has not left you. You are still in His plan. There is more ahead. You've waited. You've wondered. You've questioned whether you missed it, messed it up, or were disqualified. But God says no. You're right on time. And if you've been praying for a word, for a sign, for a reason to keep believing, here it is. This is your confirmation. You're not alone. You're not off track. And you're not too late. Take a breath. Let it sink in. You've been seen. You've been found. And your next step starts now. If today is the beginning of something new, how will you live in a way that honors what's coming? Not just with words, but with choices, with quiet faith, with steady steps. You don't need to have it all figured out. You don't need to map the next 10 years. You just need to take the next right step, one step, in humility, in trust, in response to what your spirit knows is true. Maybe this wasn't just a video. Maybe it was a moment, a pause, a whisper, a reminder that something bigger is still unfolding in your life. So let it settle. Let it stir something deeper, not pressure, just purpose, because you don't have to rush this. You just have to move with it. One day at a time, one quiet yes at a time. And as the music slows and the light returns, remember God isn't just calling you to something. He's calling you with Him. And that's more than enough to begin.